Welcome back to Timer Bowling Video Ball Reviews. Today we have the new Roto Grip Duo. Don't forget when you subscribe to hit that notification button so you know when we put new videos out. If you like what we do, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Patreon. Jumping to first impressions, spoiler alert, all testers like the Roto Grip Duo. So let's get the usual out of the way. For now, I continue to prep our Storm React to Gloss test balls with a hard 1000, then step 2 compound, then a slight scuff with a 3000 pad. Everyone seems to be happy with this finish, and the balls look much better than that React to Gloss, so we're sticking to it. Surface finish is super important. Now, the Duo is an interesting piece. It joins the HP3 lineup as a strong symmetrical pearl. Microtrack, so it's supposed to be a stronger, earlier pearl. It also has a larger core that you might expect it to be a little rollier. What I can say is it is definitely a, quote, stronger pearl ball. So it will fit in some mid category because it's still pearl and shiny. However, it is way too strong to be in mid-late, which I typically reserve for sort of those later block balls. It's too angular for mid-control, I'd say. So that kind of leads it towards the mid-define slot, which typically have shiny ASIMs, although not exclusively, like Axiom Pearl or Phase 3, for example. It does create decent length, creates a pretty good angular back end. It certainly isn't as rolly as, say, the exotic gems, Defiant LRG asymmetric core, which gets into a roll sooner, but does have the same Microtrax Pearl cover, so they can complement each other in some way. As you can see in the video, I was able to play it fairly direct, but also get in and wheel it. There is a point where, the more I get in, the more it turned over, actually, so it took very well to increased axis rotation. I thought it might be a little slower with such a big core, but I think what happens here is the timing of the cover response and the core, turnover match up really well to make it capable of big angle. It's almost like a little kind of explosion, if you will, when both things happen at the same time. When I get past the fourth arrow, I would say I don't quite have the hand to make it turn over strong unless there's a bit more friction, but as they say, that's a me problem. Also, a really quick look here with my two-hand style, and the strength down lane is obvious. Being a slower rev-dominant two-hander, this much down lane movement is hard for me to control. A matched two-hander who has more speed will likely really enjoy this, as it really hooks up, grabs, and drives through the pins. It doesn't feel lazy. But again, this is definitely not a mid-late type ball for this style bowler either. It has its angularity, but too strong for that slot. It's even possible that some find this type of ball a benchmark, as hard as that might be to believe, more from the characteristic of trust. Tyler was next, and I can tell you immediately he really enjoyed the Roto Grip Duo. It flat out worked. It's nice when you have a ball that matches up to a bowler and condition. But let's dig into that a little bit. I mean, Tyler is, from style-wise, slightly rev-dominant, higher rev bowler, so he'll tend to see a bit more angle, and the Duo does that. Sometimes he finds angular balls just too much for his style, but for some reason he didn't feel that way about the Duo. I think part of it's because it's a heavy rolling core, but he could throw it between third and fourth, for third and fourth arrow, and then split the 8-9 pretty often. He did try a bit beyond the fourth arrow to leave a corner where it was enough of a signal to say, hey, no point in being way out here on this condition. But I think when the condition calls for it, the Duo is probably capable, but I would say that's kind of mid-late ball territory anyway. He had missed room out as the ball just seemed capable of storing enough energy. I would say he also had a little room in, surprisingly, but if he wasn't careful about, say, spinning it up with extra revs or slowing down a little bit, it will jump. I had Tyler do a quick comparison to his idol Cosmos. I'll preface by saying it's fairly lane shine, so not as gritty as the out-of-box finish. However, you can still immediately see the Cosmos is way smoother and a little less ball. To be frank, it's crystal clear why the Cosmos has become Tyler's benchmark and fits in his mid-control slot. I would say if it was still the factory finish, it would still be smoother, however, much stronger. I wanted Tyler to compare to his 900 Global Zen, as the formula is similar in terms of big core with a strong pearl cover. If you recall, I actually placed the Zen in mid-control, mostly due to its versatility. It handles medium volumes but can be used on lots of pattern shapes. It probably generates more angle than most balls I slot in the mid-control, but I still like it there. And what happens is the Duo looks to be almost like a mid-defined minus, and the Zen turns out to be, I would say, a stronger ball overall versus the Duo. It has a slightly rounder, booming response down lane where the Duo comes off a touch more, let's say, stand up and forward, but I mean, it's just a touch. The Zen also had forgiveness from out and maybe a little less from in than the Duo. Not clear if I would have both in the bag, but there is some separation. And finally, we have Brian testing the Duo, and as we prefaced, he had a good look as well. As expected, it's a bit more archy, but it had a pleasantly punchy back end for Brian. He could play it more direct and closer to the friction, as well as moving in a bit. So second arrow gives it an earlier sort of, heavy arcing roll through the pins. And when he moves in, it gets a bit more length in the oil and just kind of generates more angle. Gives it a nice little pop, which gives it some decent versatility. Brian struck plenty as he moved around to find what the Duo is capable of. Various angles and boards, it seemed to work well. He got in as deep as the third arrow and it worked from there as well. But I would say that's probably just about at the limit. However, that is plenty of room for Brian, and therefore, you'd seriously consider whether this might replace something, in his bag more like mid-late, let's say, for him. I think it's still a little stronger for from most of his mid-late balls, but I would say he doesn't feel it's quite phase 3 strong. However, it is something to think about for sure. I also had Brian compare to his Zen. We tried to nitpick what the differences were. That's how close they were playing. Again, it's a house shot, so things do tend to get a little closer. But sometimes I felt the Zen was rollier. Sometimes he felt the Zen was more angular. Part of it, I think, is the color swirls on the Duo that allow you to visualize the transition, whereas the blended colors on the Zen make it look a little smoother. But the truth is, for Brian, that may have too close of a use case. All right, let's wrap up. Final thoughts. The Roto Grip Duo was a ball all three of us enjoyed, but I always look at it like, where would it fit in an arsenal? I know some people like a look enough that they just fit it in. I try to just give objective feedback so you can decide if you have a slot open, does it fit? So I go back to what I said. It isn't squarely in mid-define, nor is it squarely in mid-control. For higher rev bowlers, it's closer to defined shape for sure. For matched lower rev bowlers, it'll arc more, giving it an opportunity to be more mid-control or even mid-late. Anyway, you see what we saw and thought. Now, time for you to make your own decision. Thanks for watching.